I am Jeff Ado. This is Lunacy, where we discern the sacred from the insane and admit that whether we like it or not, we are all profoundly affected by the cycles of the moon. How? Nice one. Nice.
Yeah, thank you. I've
good.
practiced.
Very wolfish.
I've practiced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My guest today is Jeremy Fricke, who is the, what are you again? The vice president?
I am the vice president of Fancy Pants. No,
The
of mission advancement here at TriFaith Initiative.
Here in Omaha, Nebraska. And we're here today to talk about the TriFaith Initiative, what that is, what the origins are, and why it's the best religion.
Yes. No. but yeah.
We're already in trouble. Okay,
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So, Jeremy, first of all, we're in Omaha, Nebraska, and just kind of backstory for everybody, like why, Jeff, are you talking to this weirdo?
Well,
it was like
part of the series.
You ever play that game where you like go through the yellow pages and you just like close your eyes and then pick a name?
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah, I hope so.
Not really. That's not what happened. I grew up here in Omaha, Nebraska, and I went to this church called Countryside Church, which is a very relaxed, inclusive Christian church. And then I discovered that some years ago they moved, which I was kind of upset about because I liked the old joint. You know what I mean? It's right next to my high school and whatever. But they moved out here to this land to join the TriFaith Initiative, which is a Jewish temple, a Muslim mosque, and a Christian church all on the same property, right? Which sounds like the beginning of a bad joke.
Yes, and we have a fourth partner in a sense. That's the Interfaith organization, which I am part of the staff.
Okay, right, great, perfect, awesome. So great. So that's why we're here on the show, because I think personally that this is amazing, and it's really kind of miraculous that you guys have been able to put this together, and it's really a model for the future, and it demonstrates that we can all get along in a very real way. Yeah. So good on you.
Thank you. I've done everything here.
Yeah.
I take all the credit. No.
Right.
It takes tons of people and decades of work to get to where we're at today.
Yeah.
For sure.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I'm excited to get into the story. Yeah. So first I have a few questions for you. TriFaith, okay, that's cool, but it's a little basic. Have you considered Chrislamutism?
I mean, no, but I would like to hear more about that.
That's free, first of all. Consider it my donation.
Okay.
And it's a big one.
Okay, thank you.
Chrislamutism.
Chrislamutism.
Yeah.
All right.
It's like all of the things.
We'll put that into consideration for future reference, yeah.
How about Abraham Rocks?
Abraham Rocks, man. I actually would be open to having a rock garden here that we call that.
Right. And maybe just like graffiti each rock with Abraham?
Yes, Abraham. And maybe we have to bring in some of the other family members like Isaac and Ishmael and Sarah and Hagar and all the others. But I'd be game.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they might fight a little bit. I guess
Yeah,
you'd have to
that's okay.
separate some of them.
That's okay.
But the whole
Families
point
fight.
is to put them together, really.
Yeah.
Making peace.
Yeah. But, who do you fight with the most? Your brothers and sisters.
True. True story. How about something a little longer like Abraham's kids? Check it out. We're all getting along now. We all grows up.
That actually might be my favorite so far.
Okay.
We're thinking about, how can we get in touch with the youths?
Yeah.
And I truly believe that all the youths will flock to us.
For sure. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. I mean, you guys want to be wake.
Yeah. Yeah. Awake. Awake.
Isn't it wake now? Didn't it go from woke to wake? I feel like it should.
I don't have enough youths.
Clearly. Yes. Okay. Well, then where are the youths to ask?
We need to reframe it. We need to rename it.
Yeah. Yeah. Interestingly, on a not a serious note per se, but like I grew up growing. I grew up growing.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
That's not true. I grew up going to countrysides, and there was like a huge youth group program and youth ministry and youth choir and music, and it was awesome. It was really a great way. I mean, really, like a lot of my roots musically also come from that upbringing and history.
Yeah, I mean, they're in all truth, there are quite a few youth that go to each of these institutions, especially the mosque and the church, just because of how society has shifted around religious identity. Those two communities have a larger number, but all three have significant youth programs.
A Muslim, a Christian, and a Jew walk into a bar. Mm-hmm. What's next?
It depends. Some will walk out of the bar right after that.
Okay. Yeah.
But actually, that's the start of one of our very first programs. We had a program called More Than a Joke.
Okay.
Because that is the start of a bazillion jokes.
Right.
But anyway, I mean, that actually brings up some of the complexity of this project, actually, mm-hmm. Because depending on who is sitting in certain seats, that is a conversation that is worth having for people, and sometimes it's not. Some folks feel more strict about alcohol than others, for example. We've had an imam who was not interested in that, and we've had an imam who was totally fine with that.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. That's good. I'm glad you went the serious route, because
might as well.
That's important. Yeah. Drinking is awesome. Everybody knows it, and it totally leads you to God. I think all drunks can admit that. It's great. It's never done any harm to anybody.
No harm. There's definitely no reason why many religions say, don't know about that.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. Okay, good. So you are aware that Christians, Jews, and Muslims aren't supposed to get along, right? So saith the Lord.
Yeah. Well, where does the Lord say that?
In all of the books of the Bible.
Okay.
It says, thou shalt not kill except for people that are in a different religion. Then it's cool to murder them.
Yeah, I forgot about that translation.
Yeah, it's in one of the later translations.
One of the more recent ones in the last 20 years.
It goes from English to Navajo and then back to Dutch.
Yep, that Google Translate back and forth about 100 times.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We ignore that part.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good.
That translation is not our favorite translation.
Okay, I got it. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
But it does clearly state it in the book of Jebediah.
Yeah, totally.
Don't know if you're aware of that book. When interfaith people...
Oh my God.
I'm so glad I came up with the name Jebediah for a Bible book.
I mean,
it sounds like it would be a Bible book. Jebediah.
You could convince about half the country.
I bet people are like, what's this book of Jebediah that Jeff's talking about? I want to read that one. What else does it say?
Absolutely. Just quote it.
Unicorns are real, all right? And they're fucking everywhere. Okay, good.
Oh, man.
Let's see. Okay, here's a really good one, serious one, actually. When interfaith people go to hell, what does it look like? Are they all just yelling at each other in Gaelic?
Actually, I don't think Gaelic. Mostly, I think it's actually Klingon.
Okay.
At least that would be the hell for me, probably, as if ever.
That's good.
Mostly because, that wouldn't be hell for people who speak Gaelic.
No, that's true. That's true. Although I feel like you don't have a lot of Gaelic parishioners.
Probably not.
Here in Omaha.
Probably not.
Theoretically.
We there's quite a few other languages.
Okay.
It reminds me of the Tower of Babel, for sure.
Right.
Everyone just speaking languages they don't even understand themselves.
Yeah. Interesting.
I think the other thing is that Interfaith Hell has to be a little shorter flames. Mostly because that's the only way that they can get along enough to still constitute being Interfaith Hell.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
If the flames are too high, you can't talk to each other anymore.
Right. That's right. You can't see each other. You can't identify. Oh, that's a
dialogue.
Muslim guy. He's wearing the hijab. Or,
right.
She's wearing the hijab, etc. Right.
Right.
yarmulke over there, right? Yeah. Christian guys wearing a cross.
Absolutely.
Right. You got to be able to see
have
that.
to know that it's multiple religions.
So actually, Interfaith Hell is sort of better than regular hell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a step up.
Great.
It's in the 8th circle instead of the 9th circle.
Perfect. Right. Perfect. Yeah. I'm glad Dante clarified all that for us.
Yep. It's in there.
Okay. Everybody thinks
it's in
real.
there, and it's in the Bible.
It's not. It's a book that Dante wrote. All right. He was very creative and imaginative, people. Check out the book of Jebediah. It talks all about how Dante is full of shit.
Yeah, Jebediah is way better.
Yeah, for sure. Love that guy. Which religion has the most cat followers?
Cat followers?
Yeah.
Like of all religions?
Of the three faiths.
Of these three? Actually, probably, I'm going to take the serious route and probably say Islam.
Really?
Yeah. Actually, all around the world, cats are fairly popular in mosques.
Oh.
They'll even often have like little prayer rugs for them to lay on.
What?
Yeah, because cats are considered clean, so they're cool in the mosque. So yeah, I'll just take the serious route.
Okay,
yeah.
That's interesting. Now I'm going to convert because I have 2 cats.
Yeah,
I also love
though.
dogs. Who has the most dogs? Which one has the most dogs?
I think probably Christians.
That's probably actually right.
That's probably legitimately true. That's mostly because Christians ignore the parts in the Bible where they say like dogs are dirty and stuff. So
yeah, right.
Yeah, just pick and choose because that's what Jesus was all about.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Jesus had a dog.
Yeah, I think Jesus had a dog.
Sure.
Probably. I mean, he talks about the dogs like and stuff.
Yeah. Does
guard dogs and stray dogs and
does
all
he?
Those things. Yeah, he talks about a few dogs.
All right. There's some dogs in the Jesus talkings.
There's definitely some dogs in the Jesus talkings.
Okay.
I'm not even kidding.
I believe you. Somebody's going to be like, yes, here are all of the verses that refer to dogs in the New Testament. And then here's an addendum in the book of Jebediah.
Yes.
Okay, so what religion are chickens?
Ooh. I think they would be. I think they would honestly be denying all 3 of these religions because they're gonna get butchered.
Yeah, that's a good point.
In a lot of different ways. I mean,
I was gonna say Christian because Chick-fil-A, but then Chick-fil-A is not really nice to the chickens.
Yeah,
if you're
they
a chicken,
not,
that's like, wow, man, that's like Auschwitz.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah,
definitely not chicken for Christians.
Okay, got it. I imagine it might. I imagine it must be quite a raucous affair with everybody trying to recruit each other all the time. Who's got the best pitch, and how do you keep score?
Yeah. So on the serious note, there's no proselytizing here. That's important. But I will say that doesn't mean that people don't want to join. And I'll be honest, the mosque has the best basketball court.
Oh.
They have an indoor basketball court.
What?
Yeah, it's really awesome. I will say the Christian folks have the best food probably.
Okay.
They got a lot of volunteers to make that. And then the Jewish community honestly has far and away the best library.
Really?
Like, far and away. Like they got like 2,000 books there. The other institutions have fewer than 100.
I mean, it sounds like they're losing because nobody reads anymore.
That's maybe true.
Good job. I saw you filter yourself. That was close. Okay, but do you, just for fun, do you have like an annual recruit off where each religion competes for new followers? And then who's the judge, right? Have you considered Simon Cowell?
I mean, that would be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I'm sure Simon Cowell would be a huge into approving this process in the first place.
He would be. But, he can't sing for shit. So I think Judge Judy might be better.
That's true.
You could probably get her out of retirement for this gig. You know what I mean?
Possible. That's possible. But, she was a big Giuliani fan, right?
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. So she might have some biases.
She could have some biases.
Yeah.
I think it's really unfortunate that Jerry Springer passed away because he would definitely crush it.
Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, honestly, actually, really early on, speaking of reality shows, really early on when we were building this, we actually got reached out to by 90 Day Fiancé to have one of their couples get married here.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool. And
Yeah.
you said no?
I would have said yes. I'm just saying that right now.
Yeah. And for
that
the
wasn't
record,
the result.
Uh-huh.
But I would have said
That wasn't the
heck
choice
yeah.
that was made.
We're definitely having a reality show here.
Yeah, that would have been. I mean, it would have been potentially good publicity unless it went wrong, and then everybody'd be like, "Well, they got divorced, and it's clearly because of TriFaith." So, talk to me about the history of TriFaith. How did the TriFaith Initiative emerge? Who came up with this cockamamie idea, and how did you convince everybody to just go for it?
Right. So let's start at the beginning. In about 1500 BC is when the estimate of Moses existed.
Right?
No, I mean, so in reality, right after 9/11, I'm actually going to give kind of two versions of the story, because whenever you got multiple audiences or multiple groups involved, they kind of have their own version of the founding story. Right? They're both true. They're just different perspectives. So the most popular is that the Jewish community showed up for the Muslim community after 9/11.
Here in Omaha.
Here in Omaha. We had one major mosque at the time, and there wasn't a really strong relationship at the time. It was just kind of like, this terrible event happened, and it's causing a stir all over the country. We're going to show up and say no harm should come to you. There weren't many conversations that day or anything like that, but it did start some goodwill toward a significant number of the mosque. Basically, stories continue in these communities basically building relationships with each other, sharing food, sharing recipes, sharing conversations. And there's kind of this both practical and symbolic dream of what would happen if we actually chose our neighbors to make a statement about world peace, basically, and especially between the Jewish and Muslim community at the time. We also honestly need to save money on a parking lot, and we want to move our location, right? The Muslim community needed a new mosque because the Muslim community was growing. The Jewish community wanted to move closer to the other synagogues to have better relationships with them too.
Which are further out this direction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They're all pretty close. Like they're all within 2 miles of each other.
Okay.
So the synagogue and the mosque really started the relationship. And I think that is particularly special with interfaith work. Most of the time it's actually a Jewish Christian or Christian Muslim, because Christians are just more pervasive. But the two smaller communities actually started the relationship. The mosque's sort of version of the story would be that, they too had a growing community and a kind of rift happening in the community between how important interfaith work would be to Muslim identity. So they kind of ended up splitting. You have a community who's saying, I'm kind of feeling like this community is too blocked off from the rest of the city, as well as wanting to push toward a more particularly racially and gender inclusive Islamic identity in Omaha. So that's partially why they moved away from that. They realized, this would be really cool if we had a Christian partner. It's kind of, I kind of joke that it's a little bit of an afterthought, but it does kind of complete the dream, right, of sort of the three largest Abrahamic religions coming together, even though they have a long history of complications between each other. 2006, the TriFaith Initiative was co-founded with Temple Israel, American Muslim Institute, and the Episcopal Diocese. And the Episcopal Diocese is a great partner and had been for quite some time. Has a lot of churches in this area. They built a relationship with Countryside Community Church, and Countryside Community Church had 40 days of discernment kind of reflecting the days in the desert of Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
and learning about this project, learning about the potential, learning about the drawbacks and possibilities, and how to vote on whether to go. I always tease because Countryside Community Church is could be described as Countryside Committee Church. Almost everything is done by multiple votes and multiple committees, and very democratic, right?
Mm.
Lots of votes. But anyway, they voted about 80% in favor. They already had a paid off space. They already had a great location, again, close to one of the larger high schools,
Mm-hmm.
and in a space that needed it. But they felt that it was their responsibility to be part of this project too, right? So that's kind of the long answer.
I'm getting all the clips. That's a good answer. Yeah, that's really great. I mean, it really kind of, yeah, that all. I endeavored to talk to somebody from over there at some point, but it sort of comports with my experience of Christianity growing up.
Yeah.
I went to college, and just generally speaking, I have a lot of friends and people that I know that have, I guess you could say, I don't know, scarring from their religious upbringing. They grew up maybe Catholic, and they, I know people who got beaten by nuns and stuff. Not that this is always happening, okay? It's particular incidents, but there's some stuff. I know a lot of people that just, describe themselves as recovering Catholics. And I just did not have that experience at all. I grew up going to Countryside, and it was very super inclusive. There was no like, hey, if you don't join our religion, you're going to hell to kind of talk. In fact, like my youth minister at the time talked to us about, Native American traditions and that kind of history, which really opened up my eyes to a lot of the wisdom that lies within the indigenous community. And so I think it's really beautiful that mission has continued without me.
Yeah.
And that they've really fulfilled into
your dreams for
into
them.
my dreams for them. Indeed.
I'm so glad.
And now they're
proud.
referenced on the go Countryside. Love you
Nice.
guys. Yeah. Okay, great. And then so that's amazing. And what kind of challenges have you faced in terms of like getting this all going, and then maybe also from like, I'm going to ask you about haters, if you've had like a lot of that, but that might be a separate question. So like, what kind of challenges have you faced making this happen?
So firstly, I think it's important to know that we are 4 separate organizations, right? So we have Temple Israel, the synagogue, Countryside Community Church, the Christian United Church of Christ, American Muslim Institute, the Mosque, and TriFaith Initiative, which is its own interfaith organization. We are responsible for education around the community as well as on these commons, and helping to build relationships across religious difference. Just as a side note, although we are TriFaith Initiative and we have some priority for Jewish, Christian, Muslim backgrounds, it is not to the exclusion of anyone else. And we make sure that partnership is extended to every community. Available.
You mean you pull in like the Hindus and the Buddhists and whatnot?
Yeah, we're only like 3 blocks away from the Hindu temple. But you should definitely check it out sometime.
Yeah, sick.
But some of the challenges that we've had actually have fundamentally to do with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more power in recognizing and figuring out how to collaborate between 4 autonomous organizations with different people, different needs, different budgets, different staffs, different boards, and figuring out how to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, to be honest, there's only a couple truly religious things that we'd think about as religious that get in the way at all. Most of the time it's like, well, I owe for this area of the snow removal, right? Like kind of administrative stuff, as well as decision making. So, the mosque has 1 staff member, if they're lucky. Right now they actually have 0, and they're looking for the new imam. Countryside has like 16-ish. Temple Israel has about 10 or so. So, and all their decisions are made so differently. Often the board just kind of unilaterally makes decisions at American Muslim Institute, and at Countryside, like I said, it goes through about 3 committees before it gets to a vote of the board, and then to the full membership, and then
I like it. It's very Swiss.
Yeah. And Temple somewhere in between. So that I would say is probably the greatest source of any conflict, is just how do we work with each other? I would say religiously, there's complexity around certain issues. There's different attitudes depending on who's leading each institution at the time. It's not just about the institution. So, for example, how comfortable do you think people would be if I invited a Scientology speaker, right? It would depend. It would depend, and it would depend on who and the day and all those things, right?
Yeah. Which obviously, they should just take over. You should just give the whole thing over to Scientology, because they've got it going on.
They know how to run a business. They know.
Aliens. They do, man. Tom Cruise.
Aliens, volcanoes.
Come in here, shoot a movie on location here. Come on.
Queued
up for you, Tommy.
Bringing a lot of funds pretty quick.
That's true.
The other truth is that exactly how inclusive Countryside, Temple, and AMI are around particularly the LGBT community. That's I would say that the mosque is probably the most inclusive mosque around that, probably in the top 10% most inclusive mosques around that issue, probably in the country, but it's still not at the same level as like Countryside or Temple.
Okay.
So that's something that's always in conversation.
Right.
But again, autonomy, trying to figure out how do we collaborate, how do we ensure that people feel included and welcome, and that, at minimum, that it doesn't spill over to frustrations on the basis of religion too.
Right.
I think the other piece is just since we have 4 organizations, 4 budgets, etc. People often will only decide to spend a certain amount of time doing religion. And we do not want any of that to be competitive here. We want that to be, we add to each other's stuff. But I think at the end of the day, people do have a certain amount of hours that they can spend doing things.
True story.
And I think that that's something that we're continuing to work through on figuring out how do we make sure that kind of all boats rise with the decisions we make.
That's great. And then what kind of has there been? So that's great. First of all, I think it's a testament to humanity and to Omaha and to religion and people that you've demonstrated that these 3 religions can get along on the same property for how many years now? It's been
Temple was built in 2013. AMI was 2015, 2016. Countryside was 2019, and we were 2020.
Okay.
So it's pretty young.
A few years,
but
anyway.
But we've been on this journey with each other for 20 years.
For 20 years. So let's just go with 20 years.
Yeah.
All right. Because the full thing. All right. Yeah. So it's great. It's a testament to humanity and these 3 religions that you have demonstrated and proven that you all 3 can get along and also feed each other. Which I'm also curious about that. Is there what kind of interfaith conversations are there? Do you guys get together and debate about stuff, or do you get together and share about, oh, hey, look, we're all going to celebrate Shabbat this week or whatever?
So that is still in an experimental phase.
Okay.
Exactly what that looks like. We do stuff every year, at least every few months, together.
You have just sort of like a cocktail hour without cocktails, probably.
A mocktail hour.
A mocktail hour. Yeah.
We've done that. We have a yearly huge event that we call United We Walk, where people show up to kind of reflect the importance of diversity in Omaha. We have a collaborative event that we call Race, Religion, and Social Justice Conference. A few hundred people come to push forward social justice around race and religion. We also have a variety of, smaller things too. Sometimes we work with one institution at a time. Sometimes we work with all four together. Like actually in just a week or so, Muhammad Ali Jr. is invited by the American Muslim Institute to speak. He's going to use the church to speak at because the public event will be too big for the mosque and the TriFaith Center is busy. So, we figure out ways to kind of collaborate with each other. Historically, and we still try to do some kind of visit each other's spaces and witness each other's service. All three are open to some level of participation of non-members if they would like to, but not required to in any capacity. We try a lot of things, and I think when you're collaborating with multiple organizations, we kind of have these baseline goals. We want to make sure that people feel more comfortable in each other's spaces, because we do believe that will help them feel more comfortable with each other as people. If we really want to get to the point where it's not all like you're welcoming. Being welcoming is great, but it expects the other person to come to you.
Right.
So how can you be brave about being, in a sense, the minority in the room?
Yeah.
Right. How can you be brave enough to show up for other people?
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. So you encourage people to step out and step in and experience the other religion so that they have the experience for themselves.
And sometimes it's just, let's have coffee.
Yeah.
Let's have a coffee time. And sometimes it's, let's have a deep, meaningful conversation about international conflicts and world peace, right?
That's great.
It ranges the whole distance.
Yeah, my grandfather, according to my mother, would go to any church or any temple or anything that was anywhere nearby because they lived. He worked for USAID, so they lived all over the world. They lived in Thailand and Vietnam and Nepal and Tibet and all over the place. And I'm always curious about that. I've never been to a mosque. I've been to a mosque, but I've never attended service before. And I've been to temple for a lot of bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs and weddings and such. But that's really great. I love that you're encouraging people to reach out and experience different things, and that's beautiful. That's great. Good job, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Way to go, Fricke.
I can take all the credit.
You and your fancy pants. Winning right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Always winning.
By the way, Jeremy is the prophet of the TriFaith religion, in case anybody was wondering. He's the one who was foretold in the book of Jebediah.
Yes.
And his name will be something funny like Fricke.
That's great. Oh, my God.
Okay. Great. And then, so it seems clear to me, at least, that in a peaceful world, this model really is the way forward in a large part. And I'm just wondering, how does Interfaith reach out to other communities to attempt to inspire them to follow in your footsteps, so to speak?
Yeah. So for a long time, I feel like the mindset was oriented around sort of a hypothesis of, does proximity help foster relationships? My personal view is no. There's so many examples of people in proximity not working out.
Yeah.
Right.
Even in Israel. I mean, including. I'm not talking about the war that's happening right now, which would be obviously a thing. But my mother pointed out that there's a mosque right next to the Christian church, and they all kind of fight. Yeah. Literally, they kick people out, and you can't be here now, but now you can be here. And there's a whole thing that there's a lot of tension there. I mean, obviously, different kettle of fish that's going on, which we can get into that later. But you're saying even here, it doesn't really foster relations per se, because you just stay in your own yard.
Right. I mean, it takes more than one step to get to the other institutions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even if we were all in the same building, we'd have to come at the right time.
Right.
Howard Thurman, who's a theologian, particularly around like racial justice in America, he talks about how being near each other without genuine fellowship results in conflict. And he was mostly thinking about Black churches and white churches at the time, but I think it's true for everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
You gotta decide, how are you going to be courageous enough to visit other people, to be outnumbered, and I don't mean that as a us versus them, but I think a lot of people do have to start with this feeling. They often do start with this feeling of us versus them, even in the most positive way you can imagine that, right? Like beautiful communities and all that. I'm afraid to offend. I'm not as afraid of like people blowing up or something like that.
Right.
I'm afraid of damaging a relationship that has barely started.
Yeah.
We need more bravery than that.
And acceptance too.
Yeah, and acceptance. Yeah, so that's the balance, right, of being a good host and being a good guest. Is a good host knows that when a guest is trying to do their best, and a good guest knows that the relationship will to continue if they make a small mistake, and their openness, and they're open to learning more.
Yeah, that's great. So there's forgiveness. So you got forgiveness, acceptance, courage, love.
Exactly.
Sounds like a lot of different religious values.
Oh yeah. Every religious value.
All of them agreeing
religious
about
values,
the things. But hey, there's a loving thy neighbor kind of a thing going in there, right?
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah.
That answers my question sort of locally, but then I'm just curious, like, is it part of the mission of the TriFaith Initiative to reach out to other communities globally and or locally, not locally, but like in other states, et cetera, to encourage them to do what you were doing?
I would say that our goal, firstly, looks kind of like when you drop a pebble in the lake and there's ripples, right? Yes, we do the most on this TriFaith Commons, and then kind of second most in Omaha, third most in Nebraska or the region, nationally. We don't do very much internationally. There's a lot of wonderful people doing great things internationally. Our mission literally says to cultivate inclusive environments to advance interfaith relationships and understanding. In a sense, this is a model of an inclusive environment. Not everything is perfect. There are little disagreements here and there, but at the end of the day, we've committed to a relationship with each other. That's how any relationship goes, right? We have to figure out how to continue the relationship. For me, I think it's a lot less about building more campuses. To be honest, this is a project that not every community could do. Right? It's not a cheap project, and it requires space. It requires organizational commitments in ways that are hard to get people to do. So a lot of the time we take what we're learning here about relationship building, about understanding each other on the basis of religion and other identities, and look to where people are already having these relationships, right? So I talked earlier about, does proximity encourage relationships, right? I want us to invert that a little bit. When we already have proximity, how do we make sure relationships continue, right? We all, most of us work in a diverse space. Our kids go to diverse enough schools in some capacity.
Usually.
Yeah, in some way. And we need to figure out how those relationships actually work, right? How they move forward, how they continue, and how do they stay committed to each other? How do communities stay in community?
Yeah, so part of me thinks, I wonder if, obviously, yeah, as you stated, it's this is, I think, a very unique community here in Omaha in that they're. I mean, I've lived here. I've lived in New Orleans, so in the South, and I've lived in Los Angeles, and now I live in Rough and Ready. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Up north, California. Yeah, Great Republic, Rough and Ready.
I have never visited.
Oh yeah, it's fun.
California.
Just come visit, man. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's really, actually, really beautiful. I love it. But what I've noticed about the places that I've lived is Omaha, for sure, is the most inclusive place that I've lived. Yeah. Growing up here, I don't know. I feel like, and maybe that's just me and my own experience. Who knows? But personally, like I feel like there's just more acceptance and kind of less racism and just less division. It's more based on like, are you going to show up and do you have integrity? That kind of thing. Like that's my sense of it. So I feel like just based on my own, obviously very personal experience, subjective experience, I do feel like Omaha is a really prime place for this kind of initiative to flourish. I just wonder also then if in other places, if you just took the TriFaith model minus the logistics of having all of the institutions on one plot of land, where you could just sort of take that model and then encourage other, communities to just choose, hey, this temple is going to partner with this mosque and they're going to partner with this church over here, and you guys are going to do events every, couple of weeks, whatever. Jerry Springer's going to come back from the grave, show up and moderate
the debate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, so we cultivate these inclusive environments in a lot of different ways. We do some of that. And, again, especially when it comes to sort of a ripple effect, it tends to work best to continue to extend that same network a little bit. Mm-hmm. The truth is that Omaha, in my opinion, is a good snapshot of the United States. There's absolutely segregation of sorts and racism and religious bigotry. There's also a lot of inclusivity. All of that is true. Mm-hmm. Even the religious and racial demographics are pretty similar to the rest of the United States. I think that is a good idea, and we have supported a few congregations to do something kind of like that, where they connect with others in their community. But I will say, in our experience, it has been something where it's much more successful if those institutions, or one of them at least, is already pretty committed to it. Like, mm-hmm. It's harder for us to go to someone who hasn't thought about it.
Right.
But we also think about this as like, how do you make sure that the people in your workplace are having effective conversations around religion? I think people are scared of religion at work or religion in schools, but at the end of the day, it's a key component of a lot of people's lives, and a component that some people can kind of hide and others can't, right? I mean, it's very hard to hide wearing a hijab or a turban or a beard.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's just not going to be equal. Right. So we need an opportunity to make sure that our schools and our workplaces are working toward truly being inclusive across lines of religious difference.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's great. I mean, get ready, because now that you've been on Lunacy, the phone's going to be ringing off the hook.
Yes!
Drop the mic, bruh. Yes! We're going global, you guys. Big time. Jeremy Fricke, in charge. All right, Prophet Fricke.
We're ready.
Well, but on that note, I actually would encourage those of you listening, if you are part of an organization that is interested in doing something like that, please reach out. Call my man Jeremy here. It's TriFaith Initiative in Omaha, Nebraska. Yeah. And also on that note, I'm just wondering, like, if people are listening and they're like, hey, I want to get more involved, or maybe even I want to give a donation. I really support this idea and this mission. Where can they go?
Yeah, so the easiest place is to go to trifaith.org. We have a donation page. We also do have a variety of online programs that are available for people wherever they are. We also have a great YouTube channel of past programs. But definitely reach out, and you'll get a reply from a staff member to chat with you about what you would like to see out of this, and what and how you would like to support this kind of project.
Beautiful. That's great. So my mother wrote she writes plays and musicals, and she's a tremendous singer and just an overall awesome human. Love you, Mom. Now she has to listen to this. I dropped her name. But she wrote a play, a musical called The Children of Abraham, which she put on at her church in Northern California in Moss Beach, which is also a UCC church, United Church of Christ church up there. And it's, it's like basically this tour bus gets stranded on the top of Mount Sinai with some Jews and some Muslims and some Christians. And they're stuck, and so they start swapping stories about things that are in the Bible, and they start to realize, oh wow, this story in our religion goes like this, and in this our religion it goes like this, but it's the same story, it's the same, very similar messaging, you know what I mean? That's about love and compassion and caring for each other and that kind of thing. So I think that's I really enjoyed seeing that and experiencing that and loving that. My mother dove into those depths. But, the discovery is really that it's remarkable, the level of commonality that exists between these three religions. And I'm just curious if that's part of the discussion. Is there kind of comparing notes kind of things? That's part of what you guys do?
Oh, I would say that's a majority of what we do, but not just similarities. I do believe that if you feel that you are focusing a lot on the differences between religions, then you should start thinking about what are the similarities. Mm-hmm. If you're thinking there's so many similarities between these religions, I'd like you to start thinking about what are the differences? Yeah. Because we need to be able to respect both and appreciate both. Mm-hmm. Because we don't want to pretend that we're so similar that we ignore the value that people bring as being special and unique. Mm-hmm. But we also don't want to forget how much we do have in common as fellow human beings, as religious communities of sorts. So that's what we're always doing. So I just taught myself actually Making the Familiar Strange is a program we created. Brings everyday people to talk about a scriptural story from their point of view that probably is a little different from the average point of view. And it's fun. It's not just that Jewish, Christian, Muslim communities see these stories a little differently and a little the same, but even people within them have some different notes, right?
Interpretations.
Yeah, it kind of brings out sort of the tapestry of what religious diversity really means. It's more than just Jews, Christians, Muslims. It's about the people who are part of these things at individual levels and how they connect with each other.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm into it. Yeah. All right, sign me up. I'm coming.
That one's online right now, actually. You can.
Oh, now I can.
Yeah. Check it out on our website.
He just threw the gauntlet down. Guys, now I got to do it. Great. No, I will check it out, actually. That sounds really interesting. Have you considered hosting an international interfaith conference?
We have. It's not an international one, but we do have the Race, Religion, and Social Justice Conference, all about improving our communities around the issues of racism and religious bigotry and religious discrimination. And we have that actually every summer. This coming year, we're hoping to have it for 2 days. And it's a national conference. People from all over the world can come, but currently it's mostly a national conference. We would love to have an international conference. It'd be good to have some partners. So if anyone who's listening has an interest in partnering with us, we would be happy to do that.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Let's go, Lunacy community. Huh? Let's make it international. All right, maybe we get the Dalai Lama to show up. Who knows?
Yeah.
Could be anything.
Yeah.
No, but really, I think that would be amazing. It's such a great place, and it's a safe space, and that'll be cool. And then, have you considered hosting an intergalactic conference?
That reminds me. So I would be totally game for that too, personally, especially with all the research being done at NASA about how faith communities would respond if we found aliens. Gotta ask, why are they funding that right now? That's because it might be true.
Yeah, because maybe they went to Congress and talked about it a few weeks back. I saw that episode. Right? And it was very convincing. Aliens.
I went to another interfaith conference called the Parliament of World Religions about a month ago, and that one really has the biggest tent of religious diversity. There were 4 different religions that were oriented around aliens there.
Wow,
4
really?
4 different
amazing
ones. Yeah. So I think that maybe we can partner with them.
Yeah. Cool.
I love
and
that.
So then here's the next question. Are aliens Christians, Muslim, or Jews?
Man, that is an excellent question.
I know. I asked it.
Because all your questions are excellent.
Yeah, clearly.
I think that there's 2 ways to think about it, really.
Okay.
Are aliens more like us, or are they more like deities? Because about 3/4 of those alien religions believe that the aliens are the deities.
Oh, okay. Oh,
So,
you're getting very literal on me now.
I'm getting very literal.
Okay. All right.
If you ask me a question about religion, I'm gonna go down that rabbit hole.
We're gonna wander down alien lane.
We're gonna go
with
down
the alien religions.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not just Scientology.
No, it's not. Okay. Well, that's good. I'm glad they're not alone. Yeah.
Of course.
Did you just do that, or did that happen before?
God, I don't know.
For the record, Jeremy Fricke, prophet of the TriFaith religion, just unplugged my microphone. All right. So if you notice something weird going on in the podcast, guys, it's because Fricke over here.
I use my prophet powers to unplug though.
That's right, man. I think you need to talk to God some more. Clearly.
Probably.
There's something missing right there. You need to consult with one of these alien religions to find out what the truth is so you don't unplug shit.
Either that or divine intervention saying, don't talk about aliens.
That's right. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe the aliens intervened. I'm going to move this away from you.
Please do. I am a terror to all microphones, wherever they may stay.
Okay. Okay, good. So the answer to are aliens Christians, Muslims, or Jews was absolutely wrong. They are Buddhist.
Why?
Just because they are, man.
Just because they are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he's awesome. He just sits there and meditates.
You don't think they're Scientologists or?
No.
No?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
But I do think that if you do endeavor to have an intergalactic interfaith conference, there's a good chance that Klingons show up.
That would be awesome.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
And they would speak Klingon.
Well,
the Borg might show up too. You know,
that would be great.
That would be probably bad actually if the Borg showed up. They're not.
Interfaith
they
Hell
will assimilate you. You know.
Yeah. I don't know what Interfaith Hell looks like when you have the intergalactic.
Yeah.
Interfaith Hell. Yeah, I don't.
Patrick Stewart wandering around going, "We are Borg." Love you, Patrick. Love him. Is there anything else that you would want people to know about interfaith or that you want to share with us on the podcast that you think is important?
Man, a lot of things, but we don't have time for all of them. I would say that we need to get away from interfaith feeling like we're all going to collect on this circle bridge that we have between these institutions and sing Kumbaya until world peace happens. That's just my personal opinion. You know, I think interfaith really needs to be seen as something that sort of has teeth. Mm-hmm. And I mean that in all the best ways. I don't mean to be too much of a Debbie Downer here, but there are people dying here in the United States. I mean, just a few days ago, a 6-year-old was brutally stabbed because of interfaith conflict.
What was that? What was the?
It was in response to some of the Israel-Palestine stuff. Someone who was rented out an apartment, killed a very young child, 6-year-old child who was Palestinian himself, and his mom got seriously injured as well. I can't remember where. It was just a couple days ago.
Who did the attacking?
It's unclear exactly who, but it was a non-Palestinian person attacking them for being Palestinian and Muslim, is what he admitted to. He admitted he did it because the targets were Muslim and Palestinian.
My God, what the?
A 6-year-old child. So, it's not as simple as like, oh, this is just something nice to have. We're talking about real people, both overt hate crimes that this kind of project is intended to help, as well as the more subtle ways that, people just don't feel like they can be themselves in our communities. Both of those things are more than just, again, something nice to have. They're really important for our society to work.
That's absolutely correct. I wholeheartedly agree with that. And you look at the conflict that's going on now, and so much of it wouldn't even exist if we could figure out how to comfortably get along. I mean, there's also Hamas, right, which is basically a terrorist organization, as far as I know. And so they're in charge. And so then the people themselves that are Palestinian don't really have much of a voice. And now all the violence is building it's probably building, a sympathy for them in the minds of the people that I don't know, but it's not doing good. It's not doing the work of God. If you believe in God, it's not. And it's just continuing the conflict and making it worse. So,
I mean, there's so much history there. And there's a lot of bad guys, right? Like at the end of the day, this conflict is killing about 90% civilians on both sides of this conflict.
Yeah.
That is not something we should tolerate in 2023 or whatever year it is.
Yeah.
We got to get off of that, I mean, this goes back at least to the early 20th century. You can argue it goes back to the Middle Ages or even earlier than that, right?
Crusades.
So I want to see a coalition of people around the world decide that this is done, not necessarily with a ton of violence, although I don't think the violence is quite done as of today. It'll be a while.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's true. I just did a podcast with two friends of mine. One is a Jew living in Israel, and one is a Sufi Muslim living in California. And we had a really interesting discussion. And I do feel very strongly that, these kind of discussions, this kind of initiative and effort is really the source of what will create peace particularly in the Middle East and between religions and traditions, demonstrating that it is possible to have these religions coexist and having there be acceptance and inclusion and respect for each of them, which I think is really what you are up to. Then, of course, there's the whole political thing. You've got people in charge, and then there's also gun companies and weapons manufacturers, and they want to make money, and so it's good for them, et cetera. And there's a whole who the hell knows what's going on underneath all of this that also might be motivating it to dig even deeper. Not to go conspiratorial on it or anything. It's just about how are people making money, and who benefits, ultimately from what's happening. And I think for me anyway, it's critically important, kind of touching on what you said earlier, to have courage to experience other faiths. And in this moment with what's happening in Israel and Gaza, like that just calls forth the need to even push forward that courage even more. It's time for us peaceful people to speak up.
Right. We really need people to speak up about this current issue, but also to think kind of the long game too, right? We need to build structures in our societies that build those relationships and understanding between different communities. I hate to say it, but there's going to be a next time between different religious communities. What can you do to start building that here? Mm-hmm. Because whenever these conflicts happen, when they happen overseas, they affect us. And people literally lose their lives and livelihoods on the basis of their identity when these kinds of things happen. Mm-hmm. That is what I just said was just kind of the most heinous example.
Right.
But there are many examples of people losing their jobs, losing their lives, or getting hurt, getting imprisoned for things that they are not responsible for.
Right. Yeah. It's insanity.
Yeah.
So which brings us to the question I ask all of my guests. For you, Jeremy, what is sacred and what is insane?
For me, there's really deeply a sacredness to being able to help people be themselves. I actually don't follow any particular religion.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask that, and I didn't. And you just answered the question. Good.
And people
smart,
ask,
by the way, it's smart.
And people just ask, why would I be so involved and so passionate about this as someone who isn't Jewish, Christian, Muslim, or anything else, really? And really the answer is because there is something deeply sacred about people being able to follow the paths they wish to. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's not just about being something, but being able to shift and being able to change and sort of have that continued story. Mm-hmm. If we don't make that a priority, like interfaith organizations like TriFaith and others do, then we are going to really miss out on a lot of community success, right? What is insane, man? A lot of things. Are we talking about insane in a good way or a bad way?
However you want to answer the question.
I think when it comes to this interfaith stuff, to religion stuff, it's absolutely insane that we continue to not have enough education nor enough relationships to be able to more massively reduce the retaliation that people face. Mm-hmm. Again, organizations like ours and others as well, we're continuously teaching people about this stuff, in advance. But people have to make it a priority when it isn't a catastrophe and a crisis. It has to be something where we're building a foundation for the future and for the present. Mm-hmm. On a totally side note, and this has nothing to do with what we talked about today, but the other thing that I think is absolutely insane is how much we waste food in this country.
Yeah.
And waste food that we could have used to actually grow more food. Like I'm a big fan of permaculture and like using food to grow food.
Yeah, me too.
But anyway, those are some things that I find absolutely insane right now. And I hope that we can move toward a better future for all people on those topics.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, that also bugs me too, the amount of food waste. And also Monsanto bugs me. Yeah. I've just found out I'm full of glyphosate, you guys. I got all kinds of glyphosate. I did a tox screen. The tox screen came back and said, you got all kinds of glyphosate, kid.
Oh, really?
Have fun with that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm trying to get rid of it in my system, but it's like everywhere. You eat meat, you're eating glyphosate. You eat corn, you're eating glyphosate. It's just...
Yeah.
So yeah, the way that we treat agriculture here is rather insane and not natural.
I'm totally off script again. Like, I'm a big fan of having more food mushrooms grown here in the United States, because we have found that like nature has already provided the opportunity to break down some of those things, but we have this like weird attitude about certain kinds of food that that reduces the interest in doing those kinds of things.
Yeah, go mushrooms.
Yeah, go
All
mushrooms.
right, this is part of the Jeremy Fricke
Yeah,
religion.
go mushrooms.
You know what I mean?
It's my religion to say go mushrooms, to defend people's right to believe in aliens.
Yes, and mushrooms.
And mushrooms.
And mushroom aliens.
And mushroom aliens, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's all great.
Beautiful. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the program. And also, I just really want to acknowledge you for doing this work. Not everybody does it. And it takes a particular kind of courage to put yourself in the front of this and really push forward something that not everybody believes in. And I really want to acknowledge you for your work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think it's really beautiful that this all started. I didn't know the 9/11 story, that this really started out of the Jews coming up and saying, "Hey, we'll back you up, Muslims. I know you're getting a lot of flack right now. It's not your religion." I think it's beautiful that's the origin of this relationship, and that there was a reciprocal thing on both parts. So may this model, go global. All right, interfaith around the world, big time. All right, Jeremy Fricke for president. All right, Book of Jebediah. Read it.
Yes, I will be writing the Book of Jebediah
In Klingon.
In Klingon.
Yeah.
That is the only language of my religion now, which is why, and I will also be the ruler of Interfaith Hell.
Good. Perfect. Great. All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the show today. If you want to support Lunacy, please go to patreon.com/Lunacy podcast. Look forward to Lunacy Community coming soon. Much love to you. And if you haven't heard it yet, check out my new song, All Will Sing. Much love.